You get the atmosphere. I mean, I did find it harrowing. I mean, it's just did you find it harrowing? I did find in a stunning royal twist. Queen Camilla was reportedly detained at Heathrow Airport after authorities uncovered something shocking hidden inside her travel bag. Witnesses described the scene as pure chaos. Security officers rushing in, royal aides panicking, and Camilla herself visibly shaken as questions filled the terminal. So, what could possibly be inside that bag that led to such an explosive confrontation? Rumors are spreading fast, and Buckingham Palace is scrambling for control. Today, we uncover what really happened at Heathrow and why this could change everything for Camilla forever. The airport scandal. Heathrow Terminal 5 was its usual swirl of luxury, tension, and quiet order. Cameras flashed, luggage wheels rattled, and through the glass walls of the VIP wing, Queen Camilla's entourage prepared for boarding after a private visit abroad. But what began as a routine security check soon descended into one of the most unsettling royal incidents in decades. The X-ray operator had barely blinked when the monitor froze. An anomaly, metallic and irregular, lodged at the bottom of Her Majesty's leather handbag. Security officers exchanged uneasy glances and rescanned, but the shadow persisted beneath silk and stationery. An alert summoned two MI5 operatives, and the terminal swiftly went into lockdown. Passengers were redirected, the boarding gate sealed, and the Queen Consort escorted to a private area, shielded from public view. As the bag was unzipped, tension crackled. Inside lay a small foil-wrapped memory card, 2 folded letters bearing the royal crest, and an unmarked satellite SAM chip. Objects too ordinary to belong to any one royale, and yet too specific to be accidental. The items were photographed, logged, and placed on a sterile steel tray. Camilla watched with quiet detachment, her gloved hands resting calmly on the table as she told officers she had no recollection of ever placing them there. The first surprise came when an MI5 analyst inserted the card into a secure reader. Instead of ordinary data, the screen flashed a single line of text. Access restricted, royal authorization required. It was an encryption form, reserved for high government communications, the same used by the palace for classified briefings. A ripple of unease swept through the security team. Someone somewhere had linked this memory card to the heart of royal encryption. Something no civilian could access. Meanwhile, the letters, each sealed in royal wax, were addressed not to King Charles, but to an alias long known only within palace archives. One letter bore a faint date stamp from Monaco, suggesting recent international contact. The discovery of the satellite SAM chip deepened the alarm. When technicians traced its signal, they found it actively pinging a network tower near Monaco's Marina district, a known hub for discreet financial communications. Camilla remained composed throughout, her tone even, her gaze unshaken. When asked if she'd been to Monaco recently, she simply replied, not officially. That single word, efficient, sent a tremor through the room. Within 20 minutes, a secure line opened to Buckingham Palace. King Charles was briefed personally, and within the hour the royal motorcade arrived to escort Camilla for further questioning at a restricted compound near Windsor. The airport scene was sanitized. The terminal reopened and staff were sworn to silence, but by evening whispers began circulating through London's inner press circles. The Queen Consort had been detained at Heathrow, and something found in her bag had forced MI5 into a full-scale investigation. The night ended with one chilling confirmation. The SAM card signal remained active, connecting back to Monaco long after Camilla's phone had been confiscated. Whatever she carried wasn't lost property. It was a message, one that had reached far beyond the palace walls. But what exactly was on that mysterious SAM card that sent shock waves through the monarchy? Stay tuned to find out. The palace in panic. Inside Buckingham's Situation Room, the question wasn't just what she carried, but who else knew. The atmosphere was unlike anything the palace had witnessed since the Queen's passing. It was past midnight, and every corridor hummed with restrained urgency. The duty officer had just delivered the sealed evidence bag from Heathrow. King Charles, visibly pale, stood by the long oak table as the head of MI5's Royal Security Division began the debriefing. The king's first order was brief: open it. Silence filled the room as analysts reviewed the encrypted memory card. Its contents appeared on a secure monitor, dozens of files with coded titles and timestamps. One folder, Estate Realignment, revealed foreign companies in Monaco and Switzerland, some created shortly before Queen Elizabeth Roman, two's death linked to trustees and royal advisors bypassing the crown estate. As the analysts dug deeper, they discovered encrypted correspondence between a private law firm in Zurich and a smaller consultancy operating out of Paris. The tone of the messages suggested preparations for large asset realignments, a sanitized phrase concealing the transfer of estates, art holdings, and offshore capital. To Charles, it was a betrayal hiding in plain sight. His voice trembled as he asked one question that no one could answer. Who authorized this? Then came the most alarming revelation. The satellite SAM card, once connected to the memory card, was found to be linked to a private network in southern France. The signal originated from a chateau registered under one of Tom Parker B.S. longtime business associates, a man whose financial dealings had already drawn quiet concern from palace auditors. This connection transformed a simple airport detention into an international investigation. By dawn, Buckingham was under internal lockdown. Staff were summoned for overnight questioning. Mobile phones and laptops were confiscated for digital forensics. The Queen's personal aide, Emily, was among the first interrogated. Calm but evasive, she denied any knowledge of the items discovered at Heathrow. Yet the palace security log showed her signature authorizing Camilla's luggage clearance earlier that week. The discovery left Charles torn between duty and disbelief. Every clue pointed to something larger. A network built within the palace's own walls. The king's last order before dawn was chillingly precise. Seal the archives, and no one leaves the premises until we know how deep this goes. The crisis that began at Heathrow had now reached the gilded heart of Buckingham Palace. But how far did this hidden network really reach, and who inside the palace was pulling the strings? Stay tuned, because the next discovery will expose everything: networks beyond the palace. The trail that began at Heathrow stretched far beyond royal walls into safe houses, hidden servers, and private vaults. What appeared at first to be a single breach of protocol was now unfolding into a web of offshore secrecy. By the time dawn broke over London, MI5's cyber division had already traced the satellite SAM active signal to a private digital server located in Nice, France, discreetly registered under the name of a charity called the Greenlight Foundation. On the surface, Greenlight was presented as a philanthropic venture, a humanitarian trust for education and medical outreach. But the deeper investigators went, the clearer its real purpose became. Financial forensics revealed that the charity had been funded directly from the sale of assets connected to royal estates, rare antiques, paintings, and leased properties that had quietly changed ownership over the previous year. Each transaction appeared legitimate on paper, but together they formed a pattern too deliberate to ignore. When questioned, palace accountants recalled several of these transactions being personally authorized under royal discretion, bearing Camilla's initials on approval notes. The accounts tied to the Greenlight Foundation were routed through a boutique investment firm in Zurich, known for handling diplomatic portfolios. That firm's founding consultant, once a minor figure in the Crown's Foreign Gifts Department, had quietly retired years earlier, only to reappear as a private advisor for the same charity. His name resurfaced again and again in old financial logs, each time linked to the same set of encrypted transfers. Meanwhile, cyber operatives infiltrating the Nice server unearthed encrypted email exchanges between two aliases, E and M. Investigators quickly matched these to Emily, the Queen's personal aide and a banking consultant in Zurich, believed to be managing offshore transitions. The tone of their messages was careful and coded references to archived parcels, vault shipments, and secured couriers. In intelligence terms, this was operational language, the type used when concealing movements of assets or information. But what truly rattled I-5 was the sophistication of the operation. Every month, according to surveillance logs, the Greenlight Foundation executed small but consistent fund transfers across a chain of accounts from Nice to Geneva, then to Liechtenstein and Monaco. The kind of knowledge accessible only to someone within or close to royal administration. Further investigations uncovered a safe house near Azure, south of France, listed under a foreign company that also donated to Greenlight. Inside the property, French authorities found 2 secured laptops, hard drives bearing the royal encryption format, and handwritten ledgers marked BP Estate Review. The initials appeared to reference Buckingham Palace, but no one could explain who maintained them. The discovery of these offshore links expanded the scope of the scandal overnight. It was no longer about a suspicious item in Camilla's bag. It was a coordinated offshore ring operating quietly beneath the structure of royal finances. M on I-5. Analysts began referring to it as the shadow chain, a network that blurred the line between royal privilege and financial concealment. Every file uncovered deepened the mystery. Was this a private contingency fund meant to shield the monarchy from political instability? Or had it evolved into something darker, a mechanism for quiet power beyond public oversight? What was once contained within Buckingham's marble halls had now spilled across borders, Zurich and Monaco. And for the first time, the investigators realized they weren't merely following money. They were following intent. But what secrets was Camilla truly protecting, and how far was she willing to go to keep them buried? Don't blink, the next move would change everything. The control room, Camilla's calls, and Charles's discovery. Behind one locked door, 2 monarchs played a silent chess game with loyalty as the only currency. While MI5 agents secured Heathrow's perimeter and transferred sealed evidence to Whitehall, Camilla sat in a glass-walled detainment suite, her phone temporarily confiscated. Yet her mind racing faster than the officers outside. Within minutes of regaining limited contact through an aide's device, she made 2 calls. One to Emily, her private secretary, and another to her son, Tom Parker B.S. The first was calm but coded: delete the archives, seal the French office, do it tonight. The second to Tom was more personal: they've opened something they shouldn't have, keep quiet until I call again. Those 2 calls made within the narrow window before MI5 reactivated full surveillance would later become the cornerstone of the palace investigation in Nice. Already under covert review by intelligence units, what she called archives were in truth a cluster of encrypted emails and transaction records. The same ones linking Emily and the Zurich consultant under aliases E and M. Meanwhile, inside Clarence House, the order was unprecedented. Every transfer, every endowment, every charity account frozen until verified. Analysts worked through the night, their screens glowing across the long table beneath portraits of former monarchs whose eyes seemed to watch silently. What began as an inquiry into contraband now resembled a digital excavation of the royal household itself. By dawn, the investigators uncovered an erased communication chain between Emily and a digital contractor known as James Ray, a name buried within the Greenlight Foundation's server code. Ray had been contracted 3 years earlier to design secure communication architecture for one of Camilla's public initiatives. Now his IP address matched that of the server hosting the hidden accounts. When cross-checked with MI5's data, the evidence aligned perfectly. Ray had also accessed the Nest-based server days before the Heathrow incident. The revelation hit Charles hard. The same contractor, his wife once praised as a quiet genius, had built the very infrastructure now at the center of the investigation. The king's suspicion sharpened into unease. Was this a coincidence, or had Camilla known all along? Her calmness at the airport, her silence during interrogation, even the phrasing of her calls, all hinted at deliberate control, not confusion. Late that evening, Charles convened a crisis meeting inside Clarence House. Present were his chief private secretary, the royal controller, and 2 intelligence officers. Reports from my 5 confirmed the global reach of the affair. France, Monaco, Switzerland, and now the UK itself, intertwined in a network of coded accounts. The monarch's closing words carried the chill of both authority and heartbreak. This is no longer a misunderstanding. It's a system, and it bears our seal. From that moment, the scandal ceased to be personal. It became a matter of state. But who exactly was James Ray? A loyal servant or the architect of a royal cover-up? Stay tuned to find out. The hacker in the shadows. Every trace he erased was another breadcrumb leading straight back to her inner circle. For weeks, MI5 Cyber Intelligence Unit had followed faint trails of deleted logs, fragmented IP addresses, and encrypted tokens bouncing across European data centers. At the heart of the digital maze was one name that kept resurfacing. James Ray, a freelance systems engineer once contracted by the palace to enhance cyber security for the Queen Consort's charity programs. He had since vanished from official records, his consulting firm dissolved, and his online presence scrubbed clean, but digital ghosts are stubborn, and Ray had left just enough of a fingerprint. MI5 to follow. The breakthrough came when agents traced a sequence of virtual wallet transactions paid in cryptocurrency. Each it was funded indirectly through Lady Hensley, a longtime friend and patron of Camilla's charity efforts. On paper, the payments looked like donations to public projects, yet blockchain analysis revealed they were routed through offshore exchanges before reaching Ray's anonymous account. This was the first tangible proof that royal philanthropy had become a smokehock screen, funding covert operations under the guise of goodwill. When I finally located him, Rai was living under an alias in a small Barcelona flat, his blinds permanently drawn, his Wi-Fi signal hidden behind layers of virtual protection. The raid took place at dawn. Spanish intelligence assisted as British agents forced entry and seized several laptops, routers, and external drives. Some still warm, others smoldering in a metal bin. Among the debris were partially burned USB drives, a disassembled satellite modem, and a folder labeled Project Bloom. The name struck immediate recognition in London. Project Bloom had been one of Camilla's most celebrated public initiatives. A horticultural and mental health campaign launched 2 years earlier, supposedly focused on community therapy gardens across Britain. But on Ray's hard drive, Project Bloom had a different meaning, a coded program managing hidden financial routes under the same name. The recovered invoice showed payments from the Greenlight Foundation and referenced asset seed replication, a phrase investigators interpreted as fund dispersal, disguised as a charitable endowment. Further analysis of Ray's laptop uncovered login credentials to a palace maintenance terminal disguised within a digital subfolder marked Garden Surveillance Feed. From there, he had remote access to internal palace servers, allowing him to delete or alter records without triggering alarms. It was an ingenious infiltration using a literal garden system to mask the cultivation of financial deception. Forensics revealed Rai had connected to the network just 2 days before Camilla's Heathrow detention, deleting a series of financial ledgers linked to Monaco and Zurich. When questioned during interrogation, he maintained silence, only admitting Rai was protecting someone who thought she was saving the crown. That single sentence changed the investigation's tone. The operation was no longer about theft or digital intrusion. Who found the charity, I think, if he saw all these elephants now scattering? It was about loyalty, power, and protection. James Ray hadn't been hired to steal. He had been enlisted to erase, to cleanse a trail that was never meant to exist. And with every secret he buried, the line between royal duty and conspiracy blurred even further. But what exactly was Rai protecting? The crown, or something far more personal? Keep watching. The unraveling web M5 closes in. By the time dawn broke over London, the palace's biggest secret was already under surveillance. MI5 had mapped the entire digital skeleton of the operation. Hidden servers, encrypted files, and financial routes stretching from Buckingham to Zurich. What began as a quiet inquiry had evolved into a full, blown intelligence crisis that could no longer be contained. In a calculated move, senior agents approved a controlled leak to a handful of trusted journalists, a tactic meant to flush out nervous insiders. By mid-morning, whispers filled press networks, a royal cybersecurity breach under review. Sources claim Queen Consort questioned by MI5. Buckingham refused comment, but the rumors exploded across Europe, sending the palace's communication team into frantic silence. Behind the headlines, MI5's operation was advancing fast. Emily, Camilla's longtime aide, was quietly detained after inconsistencies emerged in her statements. When confronted with digital evidence linking her palace login to the Green Light Foundation network, she broke. Her confession stunned investigators. She admitted to bypassing certain security protocols on Camilla's orders, claiming it was for privacy. Yet the files told another story. I've been actually trying to keep quiet about reaching 3/4 of a century. Forensic experts recovered hundreds of deleted fragments from Camilla's private suite laptop spreadsheets on estate adjustments, encrypted transfers, and an email chain titled Final Alignment. Pre-coronation, the pattern was unmistakable. Royal assets were being repositioned in secrecy, timed precisely for the weeks leading to King Charles's coronation, when oversight would be weakest. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Deep inside Emily's confiscated tablet, analysts unearthed a hidden audio file labeled C22. The recording captured Camilla's voice calmly discussing fund movement with an unidentified male voice. "We'll need to reassign the funds before coronation week. If the transition is delayed, they'll notice." That one line confirmed deliberate orchestration. The Queen Consort hadn't stumbled into the scandal. She had engineered it. When Charles was briefed, witnesses described him as pale but resolute. His immediate command, a total internal lockdown, every royal account frozen, staff confined to quarters, devices surrendered. A memo followed stating, "No correspondence leaves the palace without clearance." The king's secretary would later call it a digital quarantine of the monarchy. As MI5 deepened surveillance, the leak achieved its purpose. Inside Buckingham, panic spread. Some aides began erasing messages, others purging drives, fearing exposure. Every deletion drew more suspicion. The palace, long a fortress of discretion, was now devouring itself from within. By nightfall, the gilded corridors stood in silence. Lights dimmed, networks sealed. MI5 had drawn its circle tight, and at its center stood a queen consort, accused not by rumor, but by proof. Her own voice captured in the act of planning the crown's quiet deception. The web had finally come into view, its strands tightening with every breath of the night. Truth, tears, and betrayal. The public never saw the Queen's private tears, but the confrontation shook every wall in Clarence House. The air inside the royal residence was heavy, cold, and brittle with tension. Behind closed doors, King Charles waited in his private study. The evidence folder laid neatly on his desk, a silent testament to everything uncovered by MI5. When Camilla entered, her composure faltered for the first time. She had faced cameras, critics, and chaos before, but not this, not him. Charles spoke first, his tone calm, but stripped of affection. "Tell me it isn't true. No titles, no formality, just a husband confronting the woman who had shared his crown and his secrets." Camilla met his gaze, her voice quiet but unwavering. "And these are sisters who are engaged in service in the world, not sisters in convents or cloisters." "I did what I thought was necessary," she said, "for the family, for what's coming." It was her defense. Fear of future royal instability, of political tides shifting against the monarchy. She claimed the fund transfers were meant as a safety reserve, not deception. But the explanation did little to ease the fracture already forming between them. On the desk, the file lay open. Emily's full confession, signed and sealed. Every line of it linked Camilla to the covert accounts, the encrypted transfers, and the network that had spanned beyond Britain's borders. Then came the final blow. MI5's report confirmed Tom's involvement, his role in facilitating the movement of assets through private French channels. He had been intercepted at Northall Airfield, questioned, and placed under supervision. His accounts were frozen indefinitely. By evening, Charles issued a quiet but decisive decree. Camilla was to withdraw from all official duties until further notice. The palace's public statement softened the truth, describing her absence as a period of rest, but everyone inside knew it was a discreet suspension. Alone in her private chambers, Camilla wept behind closed curtains, the weight of silence pressing harder than any public judgment. For the first time since her coronation, she no longer felt like a queen, only a woman who had gambled loyalty against love, and lost both in a single irreversible night. And what will this mean for Camilla? How will she weather the storm of loyalty, loss, and scandal? Stay tuned. Operation Greenlight, the external agents exposed. For every royal caught in London, there was another hand abroad pulling invisible strings. As the palace reeled from the fallout, MI5 extended its net beyond British soil, coordinating with Interpol to dismantle the remaining pieces of the Greenlight operation. Within days, simultaneous raids were executed in Monaco, Zurich, and Paris, unmasking the figures who had worked quietly behind the royal curtain. Among those detained was Lady Hensley, Camilla's longtime patron and trusted charity financier. Elegant and calculated, she had been the one funneling donations through seemingly legitimate humanitarian fronts, only to reroute portions into offshore accounts disguised as foundation endowments. Alongside her, a retired British diplomat was arrested in Zurich. Once responsible for managing the Crown's overseas gifts, he had since reinvented himself as a private art broker. His role was crucial. He arranged for royal antiques, paintings, and jewelry to be reappraised, sold through private channels, and converted into liquid assets under the Greenlight umbrella. The files, seized from the Greenlight Foundation's nice office, painted a detailed picture of quiet manipulation. They showed transactions labeled as heritage transfers, referencing artworks that had mysteriously disappeared from royal inventories months earlier. Each sale corresponded with deposits into anonymous accounts tied to the Foundation's network. The system was clean, subtle, and brilliantly disguised as philanthropy. As investigators pieced it together, one motive began to surface. Camilla may not have been seeking personal gain, but security. The Greenlight Fund appeared designed as a private contingency reserve, a safeguard against political instability or constitutional change. Though the monarchy itself endured the scandal, the damage was internal and lasting. Trust had splintered. The royal circle that once guarded its secrets with unity now stood divided, exposed by the very silence that once protected it. The last move, silence in Kensington. A single car rolled through Kensington that night, and with it the quiet end of a royal chapter. No flashing cameras, no official escort, just one unmarked vehicle slipping through the fog toward a discreet residence near Kensington Gardens, where Queen Camilla would begin her life under quiet. Surveillance, the once commanding queen consort, now lived behind drawn curtains and monitored gates, her movements approved only by palace security. Inside the residence, silence ruled. Her son Tom remained in negotiation with investigators. His legal team working tirelessly to secure leniency after his role in the offshore transactions came to light. Emily, frail from weeks of interrogation, was placed under protective supervision by MI5, both a witness and a liability. The palace denied all involvement, but within the intelligence files, their names were permanently etched into the record of Operation Greenlight. When MI5's final report arrived at Clarence House, it named Operation Greenlight as an internal breach tied to royal financial autonomy. The conclusion was cautious, deliberate, careful not to accuse, yet impossible to absolve. King Charles reviewed it in silence, then ordered the findings sealed indefinitely. Releasing the full truth he knew would shatter public faith in the monarchy and ignite a constitutional storm that Britain might not survive. In the quiet that followed, Camilla's isolation became a kind of exile. Days passed with no public appearances, no mentions in official dispatches. The monarchy carried on, spotless in its silence, yet inside Kensington she kept a private journal, small, leather-bound, and hidden from prying eyes. Some believed it contained her justification, while others believed it contained her regrets. Was she protecting her lineage from collapse or rewriting royal history in secret? No one could say for certain, and perhaps that was her final act of power. So, what do you think? Was this truly a scandal of greed or a mother's last attempt to shield her family from power's cold hand? Tell us what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.